Well, joining us now on the Coach's Corner is Lisa Moosmueller-Terry, one of the coaches for the Intermont Equestrian at Emory and Henry College teams. Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, I have to take it back to when we first met, which was the spring of 2014. At that time, Virginia Intermont, we know, is closing. Emory and Henry has voiced interest and is going to acquire the program. I'm just wondering, I've always wondered, what was that time like for you? I'm imagining it was pretty much a roller coaster.
Yeah, so it was very difficult. I mean, the program had such a long history, been with the program since the late 90s, and really believe in what we do here from an educational standpoint as well as from a competitive standpoint. And we were so blessed to have Emory and Henry step up and take this award-winning program and let it continue. The college itself has such a great educational history. It's just been a wonderful fit.
Did that happen in a way that was pretty easy to make the transition in terms of your experience and, more importantly, the student athletes' experiences that were going to be joining the program?
I think so. We really didn't have much trouble because we're in the same exact location. It's the same barn we've been in. Instead, the students driving south to go to the main campus, now they drive north to go to the main campus. And I think it was a very smooth transition. I think the students that went with us from Virginia Intermont to Emory and Henry really enjoyed their experience at Emory and Henry and had a great teach out.
I mean, I think that we have to acknowledge that there was so much great success that came under the Virginia Intermont name. I mean, you're a product of that program as well. How do you balance, sort of celebrating the success that we had at Virginia Intermont while continuing on with Intermont Equestrian at Emory and Henry?
Well, it just hasn't been very difficult to do. I think the program and we have so many alumni that are out there working in the horse industry from both Virginia Intermont College and now from Emory and Henry College that you can't really go to a horse show where you don't find students that graduated from this program out there working.
And is that blending of sort of your alumni base sort of kind of come together?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we're so happy to see part of the school continue on and to have a place that they can still come, when your main campus is gone, to have a place that they can still call home. And if they walk in the barn today, it looks very similar. There's been upgrades made, but there's a lot of the same banners hanging, and I think they feel like it's the same, except the colors have changed a little and there's a different name on the sign. So
I think there's also been that consistency in the coaching staff, and that's what I wanted to ask you next. I feel like that there's this powerful four of you plus a lot of support staff and also, but in particular, I wanted to ask you, I feel like when I talk to the student athletes, when I see the riders on campus, when I ask them how things are going and they talk about the coaching staff, I feel like your name is always followed closely with, it's always Lisa and Heather. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that relationship and how you all work together and how that's broken down a little bit.
Yeah, well, I've been here for over 20 years now. I sort of stopped counting after 20 years. Heather, I think, has been with us for about 15 now, and I've known Heather before that as well. And we have a lot of the same philosophies. So when they ride with me or they ride with Heather, they're not hearing different things, so it feels very consistent with them. And of course, it is a barn, even though we have an academic program and we have these very successful teams and we're very competitive. We get very close with our students that are here, whether they're a major, whether they're a minor, or whether they're a history major and they just ride on the team. We have all of those, but when they're here in the barn, everybody's part of the team. And so the consistency from going from one class to another is easy for them. Going from riding in a practice with me or riding in a practice with Heather, riding dressage or riding hunter jumper, they find the cohesion and the connectiveness between. I mean, we all work on body control, body awareness, and effectiveness in the with the position and riding the horses. So. And of course, we have Jessica Denniston, who is not technically a coach, but she is teaching the riding classes. So she is obviously helping to coach all the team players, and she's been a great addition as well. And then, of course, within the academic program, we have Dr. Patty Graham-Thiers, who has been with the program as long as I have, maybe succeeds me by a year or two. And then, of course, Dr. Haught, who's our vet and has been here longer than all of us. And so I think that's a big thing too, when you're looking at these programs and you're looking at these teams. Some places have a lot of turnover, and we really don't. You know, everybody believes in this place and believes in what we're doing. So it's been very good.
Yeah, I've always been really interested in super successful teams. And of course, the IDA teams have had this long history of success. I think it's actually easier to say when you all did not win a national championship than when it is to try to list them all. But I always wonder, what is the key to that? What has helped make the program so successful?
That's a question we get a lot, and it's a hard thing to answer. I mean, part of it is always, a little. So I can't say we're surprised because we know we have strong teams. We know what we're preparing our riders well to go out, and the situation where they get a horse, where they draw a horse and they don't have very much time to get familiarized with the horse. And I guess in our practices, we really work on their ability to understand and listen to the horses and be able to adjust as necessary. And I think that is probably the thing that makes our riders so good at that competitive level, is that they can say, oh, this is like this horse that I rode, and I know I have this set of skills to use in this situation, and I need to have more leg or use less leg, or I've got too much pace. And they're able to identify real quickly, because we focus on that a lot in riding. It's not just, sometimes we talk about riding in a way where some riders try to make the horses fit into their mold, and we make our students and riders try to fit into whatever the horse needs. And I think that's probably what the success is. But also you get to a point where you do kind of wonder, you have to pinch yourself a little bit, like, wow, we did it again. There is some of that as well. And I think anybody who is, wins a lot of championships feels that way. You feel honored to be able to have done that.
It just can't be easy. I mean, you guys show up at horse shows, and I think that, not being, bragging or anything, but people know who you are. People know the Intermont equestrian name and know that we're a team to beat. So that's not easy, but I'm wondering, as a coach, how do you motivate yourself? I mean, it's like, seeing that success, it takes a lot of work to get to that level of success. How do you, as a coach, do that each year in and out?
Well, we like to win, so that is a driving force, and we also try to keep our students very humble too. I mean, being a good loser is very important as well, and I think sometimes they expect it in some ways. I've gone to championships with students and with the team, and we haven't won, and they're almost a little bit shocked, and that really brings them home and makes them work harder for the next year. But yeah, I mean, I want them to do well, and we want to continue the tradition. So I always want them to have a great experience. So we put a lot of time in, put a lot of practice in, so that when we get to that point and we go to nationals, that we have a great shot at least being respectable. If not winning, you want to have a good performance where nobody goes home and thinks, God, if I had done something different, or if I'd done this differently, at least they can go and say, I gave it my best. And when we have the draw situation, sometimes you have luck of the draw, so there's things that you can control and there's things that you can't control. So I always want them to come out feeling like they did their best.
How do you keep developing your teams in terms of, like a lot of teams at Emory and Henry, you carry a lot of riders. How do you work with such a large squad and help develop? Because the consistency to winning national championships and things is being able to have people that can step in when those people that are leading the team graduate and go on to other careers.
Right. And so when we have students that come and they become part of the equestrian team, we tell them right away that you might come here and go and start competing right away, or we might put you on the team, we might put you on the books and work with you and hold you back a little bit. and get you to the point where we know when you go, you're going to be successful. And so that's kind of how we build it. We're thinking this is going to be the person that's probably going to step up in a year, but they need to work on, you know, they need to work on some skills and have a little more time in the saddle and get a little stronger before we actually take them out there and compete. And also too, when we compete at different colleges, a lot of times we know the types of horses that they have, and we know what students are going to be stronger. Different riders are going to be stronger with certain types of horses. So it definitely evolves. I always talk about, I had a student one time who she was on the team for 4 years and she never showed until her senior year. In her senior year, she went to every single horse show and she won an individual national championship. So I say it'll come. If you don't get to show right out of the gate, it'll come.
You know, I have to ask about 2020. Like a lot of teams, you know, there's not that closure that we get. And you know, in your role in the IDA, you're involved with the IDA vice president, if I remember right, with the IDA Association. How hard was that decision to cancel our championships? And how do you find some closure for not only yourself, but for the team on 2020?
Well, like everybody, it was a very hard decision. I think the IDA probably came out with an announcement that we were canceling our championships a little bit earlier, maybe than some others. Because of the format for IDA, you have less competitors at nationals since you can only have one person in the ring at a time. Of course, we have DSE now, so that has opened up a few more doors. So it's still hosted at different colleges. And so this year it was supposed to be hosted at Mount Holyoke College. And so Massachusetts closed the schools sooner than others. And so the decision was fairly easy. I mean, after a year's worth of planning, you couldn't change host sites and then of course everybody followed suit, unfortunately. It was very hard for the students. I know there was lots of tears. You know, they had worked hard. We had a strong team. We would have done well. And you know, there's some that were on the team who got to compete in previous years, some that had won national championships, so they got to have had that experience. Not to say they didn't want it again, but I think it was especially hard for the ones who this was their first shot at making it to the nationals. So it's been tough. You know, the IDA has done a great job of putting podcasts out, giving spotlights to the seniors on social media, and doing a lot of things to recognize the accomplishments that they have had. And that's about as good as we could do as far as a closure. You know, we're hoping that when things get better, we can of course bring our seniors back to campus and have a graduation with them, and you know, recognize those that would have been on the nationals team, and try to have some closure that way. But we've been in contact with a lot of the seniors, and a lot of them are out there working. They've gotten jobs and they're out there and they're starting to work in the horse industry. So I feel like they're okay, you know, even though they missed that aspect. And then of course there's a lot of Zoom meetings discussing what we'll do in 2020. In the fall, and I know IDA has been thinking about a lot of different options, and just like everybody else, it's such a moving target. We haven't made any decisions, but they want to have some level of competitive experience for the riders in the fall.
You know, and finally, you know, you were talking about, you know, the situations we're in now and the planning for the future. You know, I'm in my living room right now because of the pandemic and so forth. But in a lot of coaches, they're still working, but they're doing it from home, and it's a lot different. Your situation's different, though. I mean, can you talk a little bit about how life has still had to continue forward out at the center, and what it's been like for you?
Right. Well, I'm in my office at the barn, and I come here every day. Maybe sometimes I don't come on the weekends, but you know, we still have the horses. We have about 50 school horses, and we have great horses. We have some of the best horses in the collegiate riding, and their needs haven't changed. They don't know that COVID-19 is going on. They are getting a little bit of a vacation right now, since we have our staff, our wonderful barn staff here. So there's about 7 people here every day, but we are closed to visitors, and there are a couple horses that need to keep being ridden, but the rest of them are having a little break, but all their needs are being cared for. And we're painting the barn and doing some projects and stuff like that. But it has been great group I've got here, but it's been, it's been difficult because I miss the students. I miss the activity in the barn, which usually gets quieter in the summer, but then we usually have our summer camps, which are, geared towards those that want to ride in college. And some of them decide to come here. Some of them just want to, brush up on their skills and get to ride with us. And of course we had to cancel those too. So it's been very different. It's very, very quiet other than the dogs.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, kudos to you and your team out there, Lisa. Seriously, as someone that works in the administrative staff with the athletics, I mean, always just amazed by the accomplishments that you guys have in competitions, but also just the experience that you create for our student athletes. I mean, those kids out there love it, and and it's something that's very admirable. And I know it's a lot of work that you and the rest of the staff puts in. So thanks for everything that you do.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it, and it's just great to have the support of the athletic department and you and Ann and Joe and everybody. Really have embraced it and learned a whole lot about the horse world. So it's been good.
Well, thanks for joining us on Coach's Corner.
All right. Thank you for having me.